21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
I think when you think about success, what does success mean to you? Not necessarily what your parents think success means for you or the world thinks success means for you. What do you want? What are you fighting for? What gets you out of bed in the morning? My name is Peter Murphy. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pocket Prep, and I started my business 15 years ago because I failed too many times and I couldn't stand it. Well, thank you so much for having me, Martin. I am a former aerospace employee. I used to work for Lockheed Martin in Orlando, Florida. And while I was there, our production control director, basically that whole department is in charge of getting all of these really cool high-tech parts out to the assembly line workers, the high-skilled workers who actually build all these really cool things. And he was very much a fan of getting a very specialized designation for all 30-something of his employees at this particular branch called the CPIM. And it is a supply chain industry-oriented credential, kind of like the project management professional, PMP, but this one's specifically more supply chain, lots of jargon, very difficult. And this was back in 2009, 5 different exams that you had to take. And for me, I was in my 20s. I was feeling really good about, career progression. That was important to me. What can I do to show my employer this big Lockheed employs over 100,000 people? And so how do I make a name for myself? And when this credential came up, I said, I'm going to do that. I didn't even hesitate. Little did I know just how difficult it was actually going to be. And Lockheed was kind enough to pay for all the education. We were on this, what's called the 980 work week. So every other Friday we had Friday off, which was awesome. Except when we signed up for this training, that off Friday became a 9-hour lecture day where we went into work and sat with an instructor from the local chapter who taught us everything we needed to know and dropped, no joke, a stack of books like this on each of our desks and said, okay, there's module 1. You got 5 of those. When you're done with these books, let us know. You'll take the first exam and we'll get you the next set of books and we'll see you in a couple Fridays. And we literally kept doing this. It was like a professional learning cohort. And it was so challenging and time consuming because it was like chunking out your weekend that we slowly had people filtering out of the program. People were just like, I don't want this. It's fine. I do enough work here. I don't need this. And I kind of rallied around that. I was like, no, I can do this. People are dropping out. That means the credential is even more valuable. I need to get this. And I was doing great. I had I would meet at Chili's with some friends. We'd flip open all these books and have a margarita and study a little bit and get ready for it. And we'd set our exam dates and we'd tell each other when we were going to do this. And I was rocking and rolling. The first exam, I beat it, no problem. The cutoff was a 300. Every exam, the scoring table was 0 to 300. The top score was a 330. And you needed to get between a 300 and a 330 to pass. And you go into the testing center, you got all these nerds, you've been reading all these books. It's literally vocab overload. It's do I know this or am I just regurgitating it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I just need to get the credential, right? I just need to do it. So you go into this automatic mode of acquiring knowledge and just regurgitating knowledge and saying, look, I can do it. And that worked for me really, really well up until my score started to trend down. And notice this, 317 was my first score, 312 was the second module score. And these are months in the making. This is a long-term, 9-10 month project to get this credential. And it wasn't until I got to the 5th and final module, which is the highest level one. It's called Strategic Management of Resources. And it was kind of an executive's view of all these inner workings and it kind of mapped up to all the details you were learning. And it just didn't click with me. It was really difficult. There was a lot of correct answers that, they'd give you all these options and all of them were right. Which one was the best, right? Which one made the most sense? And long story short, I walked out of that testing center. They printed me out the paper. I smiled at the lady and she handed it to me with looking down like this, gave it to me. And it was a 299. So 1 point shy of passing. And I was like, oh no. And I stood there for a minute. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's okay. We're going to study up again. I'm going to go back through that book. I'm going to quiz myself on the vocab. I'm going to talk to my buddies who are also taking this test. And a lot of them had already skated through. So I was feeling this pressure of I got to finish. There's a big luncheon coming up. They're going to honor everybody that's already passed. And I haven't finished yet. They make you wait a month because they rotate the questions. So I had to wait the month. I'm studying. I'm feeling anxious. I just wanted to be done with it. This is like 10 months into the process. I'm falling behind on everything. And I study, I read, I do everything again. I go back into the testing center. It's a whole new bank of questions. I do my best and I walk out, and I'll never forget this. Same lady, she hands me the slip of paper. I grab it and I look at it and it says $299 again. And I remember I go, hold on, wait a second. No. This is the one from last time. There must be a mistake. Like, you got my last score, not this score. And she just looked at me and she goes, oh, sweetheart, no, you missed it by 1 point again. And I put my hands in my face like this. And I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't think I can finish this thing. I'm so done with this. I wanted to be done with this today. Get a beer after work or go meet some friends and say, I did it. And get excited about my career progression and getting this thing done. And it just didn't happen for me. And it wasn't until I realized, it wasn't me. I realized I was never taught how to study. A lot of people aren't taught how to study. And I was like, okay, I very direly need to learn how to study properly to get past this 5th and final module, so that these 10 months of work and all these weekends I'd sacrificed and all this studying and all this knowledge that I had acquired had a purpose to it. And so the trick for me was borrowing some software from someone who had paid for it. It was very expensive at the time, like $500+ to get the types of practice questions that you would see on this big professional exam, to have that at my disposal. And once I got that CD and started just drilling myself on those questions, I got like a 314 on my 3rd attempt, passed it, got the CPIM, and held that credential for 10 years while I was working in aerospace and doing all that stuff. And it was a huge lesson for me that people needed more practice content like that. I heard someone say, like, what do you want to do if you're going to be a professional Olympic swimmer, right? And you really want, or a diver, what do? You dive, right? You swim, you learn how to do the thing. If you have to pass a computer-based test, a CBT, to get a credential, you need to know how that works. You need to get into that mindset. You have to feel that tension as these questions are there and you're reading them. And it's this quiet environment, very sterile. It's just it's very unique. And the more prep that you can do to get familiar with the vernacular, the structure of these questions, what they're testing you on, how to select the best answer, not just the right answer, because there's multiple right answers in a lot of these ones. And for me, that was really an eye opener. And I said, you know what? It's 2012, 2011, and the App Store was starting to grow. The iPhone was taking off. People were all on their phones. And I said, hey, I think I know what I want to do. We should make. And I was talking to my co-founder, Ken, and we shared an office at the time. And I was like, there needs to be an app for this. Someone needs to make an app that just helps you drill these questions. There's tons of standardized exams out there. The software is really expensive. Sometimes even just finding it can be really challenging. And now you have this mobile store where it's on your phone, you tap the button, you can browse these catalogs of things. What if there was an app in there for that? And that's where Pocket Prep came from, was this desire to create that high quality practice content that people could enjoy and figure out how to leverage the mobile economy so that it wasn't hundreds of dollars, it was tens of dollars, a couple bucks in the beginning. And that's really what got us going on that, was figuring out how we could design something like that and launch software. Ken and I weren't software engineers. We had zero software experience, but we had manufacturing experience. We had Six Sigma, we had our green belts in process methodologies and eliminating waste. And I had my CPIM. And so it was really about, or I was getting close to it again, because it's all kind of flowed together in my mind back then. But the idea was really how do we have a really high quality, low cost operation where we can help as many people as possible. We can make money doing that. We can keep our overhead down, even though Apple takes and still takes 30% of every dollar they make in their store. I think we can grow into that. And so I wrote practice questions. I designed the app in PowerPoint, literally had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, this is a screen. I made a box and I started just getting really creative. And I said, I can do this. And that was a big lesson right there. Is that something I learned, was that I could have told myself, I don't know how to do this. I need millions of dollars to make software. I need to hire all these smart engineers. I need to bring in product people. I need to have designers and people that know how to create UI kits and all this stuff. That never crossed my mind. In my head, it was like, I can do that. why not? Like, yeah, this needs to happen. This is going to help people. This is a lucrative idea. I think we should go for it. And so we made it work. And I have old screenshots. I have all these old things. I bought icon kits and found free digital rights and things like that, and just kind of started smashing things together, handed them over to a New Delhi based in India based dev team that built the very first product. And we launched, it was the CPIM apps. We launched the very first module, the basics of supply chain management, and we sold 2 at like $16.99 the first day that we launched those. And that to me as an entrepreneur was like, oh, Pat Flynn, Tim Ferriss, all these guys, they always talked about the first dollar you make on the internet is a big, big deal because of all of the legwork that goes into building something like that so that you can actually get the dollar at the end. And for us, there was still a ton of work, but to see it happen that fast, to put a product in a store and to have it, someone found it, 2 people found it and bought it, more than 2 people, right? With conversion rates and filters and everything. And that's exactly when we knew, hey, we're onto something. We're gonna make this our side project and see if we can like grow it big enough. And we did. We started looking at more and more exams. It turns out there was a lot of underrepresented exams that the big educators didn't really, I don't want to say they didn't care about it, because that's not fair, but I'm not sure they saw a big enough market, right? Because they have these big businesses and they need to make big money and they need to go after big markets. Well, what about people like me, like the CPIM? Or the next app we did was the test of essential academic skills, which is for nursing school. So all the nurses needed to prove that they knew, biology and chemistry and math and reading before they started getting into this really heavy nursing content. And so we launched that app. We sold 16 in the first day. So we put that in. Again, we rushed. We learned a lot about content creation in our early days, but we were like, hey, let's get this out there. Let's see what it does. Let's see who's interested and what the appetite is. And so that became our growth mechanism. Is we standardized the software. We invested really heavily in making it graceful and smooth and elegant and refined and intuitive, while we went off and hired all these people. We found all these people through various platforms and LinkedIn and things like that to come write for us. And so we would hire the nurse to come write the questions, referencing the textbook that you're required to have in school or your program, whatever that is. And that became our model. And we started ramping that up. And before we knew it, we had 50 different exams we were doing. We had 100 different exams. And by 2015, we were making enough money as a business to actually leave our jobs, our careers in aerospace, and go all the way in on Pocket Prep and really try to grow that into a successful software company. And we've continued to grow year over year. We've seen so many cool things happen. My personal favorite story, on my 30th birthday, which was 10 years ago, I had AFib and my heart was doing weird stuff. And we had to call an ambulance in Florida when I was visiting my mom in Ocala. And I got on a truck with someone and we just talking, and I wasn't in it. Like I was able to talk. I was fine, but like it was scary. My heart was doing weird stuff. And as I'm talking to this paramedic, she told me when she found out that I was the co-founder of Pocket Prep, she started crying. And I was like, is everything okay? She says, yes. She's like, oh, sorry, this is just so surreal. I'm only on this truck with you right now because of your software. Like I failed the EMT so many times. I didn't think I could do it. And then someone recommended Pocket Prep and I went and got it. It was like $10. And here I am, I passed. And I was like, this is so cool. And she was happy. I was happy. I was like, wow. And I'll never forget that story. Riding with someone who'd used our software, who specifically told me, same problem as me. I almost quit. I don't think I could have done this without these practice questions. That was the key for me to actually beat this exam and to be here on the truck with you and to have the career that I really wanted to have. And that stuck with me. And I was so like motivated after that. We started hiring people. We took the product from overseas back here in America. We built a team in North Carolina. I moved out to Seattle. We started this bi-coastal approach to cover our time zones and to really try, yes, definitely to help as many people as possible, but also do it as affordably as possible, keep our costs down, and have a really like profitable business in the meantime. And that's exactly what we did. So we're very honored to be, catering to all the niche exams and the niche certifications that are out there. We wanted to have our early slogan was like, if there's an exam for it, we want to have an app for it. And we've had to do a lot of restructuring. We've had to grow the business and change. And we've had all these obstacles that we've had to overcome. But the biggest thing that I learned was really about that success for me, success per Pocket Prep, for my co-founder, it's all different. Everyone views success differently. The fact that one of my favorite movies is Office Space. I'm so intrigued by that like 90s and 80s culture of like sitting in a cubicle and having to just peck away at a keyboard. I was on one hand so like enticed by it because I love computers and software and technology, but I was also repulsed by it. I'm like, oh my God, you're just gonna like live in a cubicle forever and spend like these 60-hour work weeks just, you know? And so I wanted to run a company that had more liveliness than that. I wanted to have that startup-y fun feel of like taking everyone to lunch and working on really cool challenges and connecting with customers and just do it differently than the previous generation. And that's exactly what we did. We're up to 40 employees now. We're growing year over year. We're launching more content. We're using AI to make things smoother. We believe in protecting people when it comes to AI, but taking also the best that it has to offer and really just launching that into the stratosphere with the smartest people we could be working with, both engineers and product minds and designers, content people, all of our contractors, all of our experts that really help make a difference. We wouldn't be anywhere without them. And it was really all it boiled down to for me was letting go of a lot of control, both creatively and administratively and all this stuff, to really let this company grow like a plant into a market that I knew desperately needed that. And it did. And so for me, success looked like taking my hands off, building something great, and then empowering the right people to take it to the next level. And that's exactly where we're at today. I see a lot of people talk about being a solopreneur and wearing multiple hats and starting something from scratch. And I absolutely love that. I think there is lots of cool opportunities, specifically in the age of AI. I was just at the ASU GSV conference in April, and there were some really cool products from people that were doing it all by themselves, them and like a host of AI agents getting things done. You kind of build your own team that way. You can attack problems that way, but ultimately you carry all of the responsibility. And my journey has been so fascinating because as a co-founder, as a 50-50 owner of the business, I still feel a lot of the weight of carrying all of that, even though we have 40 employees now. That's a lot of families. That's a lot of mouths to feed. That's a lot of responsibility to make that work. It's a system, and people are counting on that system economically to live. And so it was very jarring to go from, a team of 2 or 3 in the very, very early days, 15 years ago, to a team of 40. And obviously that didn't happen overnight. We actually hired 10 people this year. It's the most people we've ever hired at once. And they all came in beautifully. It was a really great process. But somewhere along the way, I don't remember exactly when this happened, but as we started hiring designers and as we started bringing in the specialized talent, right? So we carved out this space in the market and we figured out, okay, there's something here, and the money started to come in. It was really at that point about letting go, not doubling down on grabbing it and being, no, I'm the creative person. I'm the smart person. This is my business idea. Let me do it. You have to do that at a certain point, right? Like it's just you. When it's just you, go do it. Experiment, set boundaries for yourself. Hey, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, this is a signal that it's working. Great. And you can kind of play in that space. When it gets complicated is when you hire in people that really are smarter than you at specific things like design. I did it in PowerPoint. That's not the right way to do it. I actually had a designer come in and tell me we were doing a product solutions tree. And so you actually don't, I think, or an opportunity solutions tree, OST. And you look at opportunities, you try to map solutions to them later, but you're really just kind of exploring, hey, what can we do? And my mind's immediately like, well, I'll tell everybody what to do. I'm the one who got us here, of course, with my co-founder, right? But I feel this sense of like ownership over this stuff. And it wasn't until they raised their hand and say, hey, Pete, it's okay. We're actually not doing solutions right now. We don't need to hear from you. And I was like, oh, it was, it was very much like, oh, okay, well, then I'll just wait my turn. I'll just kind of hang out. And then I did. I just sat back and I just immediately started watching magic happen. All of these people that I had assembled to do these wonderful jobs, right? That again, we're trusting the business to feed their families. They showed up to work with all of that intention. They showed up with all that compassion and care for the work that they were going to do, the meaningful work, the meaningful jobs that I created, they now filled. I didn't need to worry about that job anymore. That person was going to do it. And I was like, oh, wow, that's what having the right person in the right seat really means. This is incredible. And sure enough, we just started to manage that way. We didn't micromanage. We didn't really care how the work got done or even what it started to look like, as long as it started hitting these higher level strategic objectives. So it's kind of like growing into your own executive seat. At a certain point, you don't want to be doing all the button pushing. You don't want to be the one driving the van or doing these other things. Not saying that they're not important, they're very important, but you can fill those seats easily. And so as you start to grow, the biggest entrepreneurial challenge you'll have is letting go, taking your hands off stuff and saying, no, I trust so-and-so to do that. You know, they're doing the right way. It's in good hands with these people. And obviously it's never going to be perfect. You're going to have to step in, but you'll be surprised at just how much work can really get done, at least in the software space. I know every job is different. Every opportunity is different. You know, finding different people to do different jobs has its own challenges. But for me, when I realized that like I had opened up the door to this whole world of mobile software, very specialized, that finding the right people was my job at that point. Keeping the right people, making sure that they feel good, making sure that they feel like they're doing important work and not just here for a paycheck, and really like exploring that. You know, I don't like calling teammates family members. You know, some people say like, my business is like my family. No, if you tried to pay your grandma for Thanksgiving dinner at the end of a big turkey celebration, they're going to say, what the heck's wrong with you, right? Like you don't leave a check at the, no, this is a transaction. These are employees, right? But you can still create really profound, meaningful work that riles people out of bed, that they're proud to have that logo on their, you know, polo shirt or whatever. And that's something that you can aim for. These are all stages in the life cycle of an entrepreneur. At some point, it's all you. You are the solopreneur, or maybe you have a partner. But the sooner, in my opinion, the sooner you can kind of expand beyond that, you're going to see more money. You're going to see more power. You're going to see more authority and responsibility, but in a good way, because all of the tactical stuff, all of the day-to-day operational stuff can be handed off. And so now all of a sudden you're sitting back and watching this beautiful machine that you built, making sure that the people in it are taken care of. And it kind of feels like you're playing a SimCity game, which I grew up on, you know? So it became very familiar for me, like playing a video game or, you know, solving a puzzle, making sure people are in the right spots. That for me was the biggest, most challenging thing in my career. Because you always will shoulder the responsibility, and your employees will never know what that feels like. So in the age of AI, where people are coming out of college with big debt and they're looking to get, you know, entry-level jobs and climb the career ladder like I did when I came out of the University of North Florida and got my job in aerospace, being so close to credentials, you know, as a test prep provider, as a software guy, seeing these trends in the market where certain credentials, like in nursing and healthcare, are a lot more in demand because they're board certified versus credentials for, you know, like mine, like the CPIM. And as AI looks to displace more jobs and automate more things, the importance of your own competence becomes more and more important than ever. Not just to show an employer on your resume that you're smart or that you did the homework assignment and now you're ready for the job. It's more about your independence as an individual in society, in the workforce. As things change and flow, as jobs get eliminated and new jobs emerge, whatever those look like, the people that are going to get them are the ones that are constantly curious, the ones that are learning all the time. It's not, hey, I did this learning, now I'm done. I actually just had a great conversation with my wife's uncle about back in his day when he went to get his bachelor's or his undergrad, there was no opportunity to just stay in school for your master's and get a quick master's. And he was so funny. He's like, master of what? You haven't done any work yet. You've been in school the whole time. How are you going to, well, you're going to stay in school a little while longer. Now you're a master of the job. And we had a good laugh about that. And he's right. When I was in school, again, 2007, 2008, there was no like master's add-on to a business program. They added that later, which I understand the economics of school and for-profit, you know, entities like that. That's fine. And a lot of times they're more economical to do. So no hate on that, none whatsoever. But it's this idea that you're done with learning. I got my master's degree. You know, I'm done with school. Now I'm in the job force. I'm doing my thing, but it's all out of order. So the way, and that's not the way we learn. And my big point with this is if you're aiming for a new job, or if you want to stay fresh and relevant, you want to keep upskilling, which is a big industry buzzword right now, it's not as hard as it seems. It's really just keeping your curiosity up. If you want to go into a certain field, great. If you want to open a new business, awesome. You're going to have to start paying attention to how that's evolving. What's happening there? Where's it going? What's it doing? What are people focused on? And stay close to that. It's that simple. Whether that means getting a credential to kind of formalize that knowledge and formalize the journey so others can see it, or just having that, hey, from 9 to 10 in the morning when I'm having my coffee, I'm reading about my industry. I'm learning about how I can use AI to keep my job or to augment my job, and really kind of having this approach of not being done learning things. And the more that you can, as credentials get cheaper, and as companies like mine help you pass and tell you when you're done studying so you can go get the exam, or you can go beat the exam and get the credential, that's not the end of the journey. Now you have to apply that credential. And applying that credential is part of the competence and the knowledge that you've acquired. And you can only do that by keeping a certain frame of mind. If you're done and I'm done. I'm good now. I made it. You can always celebrate that. When you get the credential, you should celebrate. But the real reward isn't the paper. The real reward is actually using that skill and doing it better than you would have without that formal credential or without the knowledge that you acquired. And so it really is just, again, staying curious, staying close to what's changing, figuring out how you can be a part of that story and not letting it just happen to you. That's the best way to approach it. If you're pursuing a credential and you're looking to break into a new space or get inspired for your next business, please check out pocketprep.com. Our software is affordable. We're really proud of the unit economics that we built. Or please follow me on LinkedIn. I've got a lot to say about AI as it's becoming more involved in our lives and what that means for careers, for us and our future generations, our kids, things like that. Join me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.